Today, we're talking about that mountain in your mind. That frustrating, overwhelming feeling of being stuck, of being your own worst enemy. We're going to explore self-sabotage not as some personal flaw, but as an internal mountain, a challenge that, once you understand the map, you can absolutely learn to climb. You know the feeling, right? You set a big goal, you're all fired up, and then boom, procrastination hits. You start making excuses, you fall right back into those same old habits. It feels like this epic, frustrating battle against yourself. But what if I told you that whole internal conflict isn't what you think it is? And here's the big idea that changes everything. It's not a personal flaw. Seriously, self-sabotage isn't about you being lazy or lacking willpower. It's your brain's ancient survival code kicking in. It's actually a safety mechanism, an old program designed to protect you by keeping things familiar. So that's what we're going to do here. In the next few minutes, we're going to show you how to read that code and, even better, how to start rewriting it. We'll look at the science of why you get in your own way, but more importantly, we'll give you a clear science-backed roadmap to finally work with your brain instead of constantly fighting against it. All right, so if we're going to climb this thing, first things first, we need a map. Let's dive into the fundamental conflict that's happening inside your head, the one that creates this whole landscape of self-sabotage to begin with. So you've basically got two parts of your brain at war here. On one side, you have your logical brain, your prefrontal cortex. That's the part that says, yes, let's get healthy, let's start that new project. But then you've got the survival brain, your amygdala. It's your brain's alarm system, and it just screams, whoa, 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 that's new, that's different, danger. And guess which one usually wins by default? Yep, that ancient hardwired survival brain. And this all comes down to a really powerful impulse called homeostasis. Think of your brain like a thermostat. It's set to a certain normal, and its main job is to keep everything, your thoughts, your habits, your situation, exactly the same. And here's the crazy part. Your brain doesn't care if that normal is miserable. It just cares that it's familiar. Because to your brain, familiar equals safe. So the second you try to make a positive change, the alarm bells go off. So how does this resistance actually show up in real life? Well, it can look a lot of different ways. Maybe you finally achieve something and your first thought is, oh no, how am I going to lose this? Or you find yourself criticizing successful people because it feels safer than trying. And this one's wild. Sometimes you might even subconsciously recreate old problems because that chaos, bizarrely, feels more like home than peace does. Okay, so if it feels like our brains are kind of wired against us, how in the world do we navigate this terrain? Well, this is where we need a total reframe of our emotions. What if they aren't the treacherous weather on the mountain? What if they're actually your GPS, your built-in navigation system? This right here is a total game changer. Feelings are not facts, they are data. An anxious thought doesn't mean something bad is definitely going to happen. Anger isn't just a problem to be squashed. These feelings are signals. They're alerts from your internal system telling you to pay attention. The trick is learning to interpret the data instead of just blindly reacting to it. And learning to decode those signals is a superpower. For example, when you feel anger, what's the data? It's often a signal that a boundary has been crossed. So the constructive response isn't to lash out, but to calmly assert your needs. Fear? That's your system spotting a potential threat. Your job is to ask, is this threat real? And respond proportionally. Sadness signals a loss, and its message is to seek comfort and be kind to yourself. When you decode the signal, you can choose a productive path forward. Okay, so we get why we resist, and we know how to start reading our emotional GPS. So how do we actually, start climbing the mountain without setting off all those internal alarms? The secret is to go small. I mean, really small. We have this myth that change happens in a big, sudden aha moment. But neuroscience shows that's just not how it works for most of us. Big, drastic changes feel threatening, and they trigger that survival brain alarm we talked about. Real, lasting change, the kind that actually sticks, comes from micro shifts. These are adjustments so small, they basically fly under the radar of your brain's resistance. So what does a micro shift look like in practice? It's this simple. Instead of vowing, I'm going to read a book a week, just read one page. Instead of trying to force a 30-minute meditation, just do it for 60 seconds. These actions are so non-threatening, so tiny, that your brain doesn't even bother to put up a fight. And that means you can actually do them consistently. And this is where the magic really happens. It's like compound interest for your habits. One small action on its own feels like nothing.
But you do it again tomorrow and the next day, and those tiny adjustments start to stack up. They compound. And over weeks and months, they build this unstoppable momentum that literally rewires your brain, all without triggering that massive internal resistance.
Now, as you start making these little climbs, you're definitely going to encounter challenges. And here's another critical reframe for you. Those challenges are not setbacks. They are your training. They are the very thing that makes you a stronger climber. They're not obstacles to be avoided. They're opportunities to build the very strength you need for the ascent. This leads to this really cool idea of becoming anti-fragile. Think about it. A muscle doesn't get stronger from resting. It gets stronger from being stressed and then repaired. Your mind is the exact same way. Constantly avoiding all discomfort doesn't make you safer. It can actually make you weaker. To build an anti-fragile mind, you learn to welcome manageable stress as the very exercise that expands your capacity. But here's something that might really surprise you. Sometimes the stress comes after you succeed. It's a real phenomenon called adjustment shock. You get the dream job and suddenly you feel anxious. Why? Because you've just disrupted your brain's old, familiar normal. The key is to recognize this feeling not as a sign that you've made a mistake, but as proof that you are growing. It's just your nervous system recalibrating to a new, better reality. So let's pull all these pieces together. You start by understanding the mountain. You learn to use your emotional GPS. You take tiny, consistent steps. And you reframe challenges as your training. This is how you stop being a prisoner of your brain's old code and become your own guide on the journey. And this, right here, this is the ultimate view from the summit. The goal is not to be fearless. That's impossible. Fear is just your brain's alarm system doing its job. The real skill, the real freedom, is learning to hear that alarm, to acknowledge it with compassion, and to stay regulated enough to choose your next small step anyway. So, here it is, your practical 4-step guide for the climb. Number 1, acknowledge the fear. Just notice the feeling without judging it. 2, decode the signal. Ask yourself, what is this emotion telling me I need? 3, choose a micro shift. Pick one tiny, manageable step you can take. And 4, repeat. That's it. That's how you rewire your brain, one small step at a time. This isn't just about understanding the theory, it's about putting it into practice. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Looking at the mountain in your own mind, what is the one single micro shift you can take right now to begin your climb?